What's up, man? Just want to play a bit before bed. I'm really fucking depressed today. I couldn't get out of bed. Not feeling too good mentally. Hey, I met my twin. Twin brothers. That's awesome. Having this not drop frames at all is mind-boggling. After 300 hours of it being like a slideshow when you're in a party, my mind is just like it's not comprehending this right now. Wow. It didn't drop frames once. The main benefits of this port: mods, and cheat engine, and better frame rate. Although you can get the better frame rate on PS5 too. Let's see what I got. What did I get? It's a shit accessory. Nothing good. Bunch of smithing texts. Well, Takemaru drops a lot of he drops a lot of smithing texts. I think he drops more than any other enemy. Well, that's a bummer. I wanted to play more. See if there's anyone else. Some people are finally getting to endgame. That's the end of that. Anyone else? Maybe I can help some people out and get some stuff. Okay, you gonna fight or what? Why do people do this? They're all aggro. You should have just left. No, it's not gonna happen. This is a lost cause. I'm tempted to just leave. They're all aggroed at once. You don't really need to do the full thing. Just go. Not worth full clearing on floor 1. Better to just make some progress. You really want to go back. Alright. I'm starting to regret my decision to try to be helpful today. This is what they always do. I'm gonna roll with it though. Be nice. You ready to take on an Itsumade? I'll let you call the shots here. Want to ruin the fun. There was a peon over here. It was a good choice. Fuck. Where'd the Kuroka come from? I'll get him. Okay, you know, you can attack the other person. They're right there. Nope. They even engage with him at all. Fucking grab is like instant. I just want to leave. No, just let me leave. You could have just ended before. I don't know what the point of fighting this enemy is. There is no point. You could have already been on like the 3rd floor by now. Just willingly fighting this enemy. Why? It has way too much health, and like everything it does, the screen-sized hitbox. Are you even doing anything? Hello? Yeah, wise choice. Should have done that in the first place. Those things are, there's no equivalent reward for fighting them. Even after they nerfed them, it still takes too long. They have way too much health. And like, everything he does covers his whole body. It's not really any fun to fight. Yeah, I don't know why Itsumade is not a boss. Like, it's a very threatening enemy, very large hitboxes, lots of health, difficult to fight. They could have easily just made that a boss. I don't understand why they just made him a high, like an elite enemy. He's got enough of a diverse moveset to be a boss in his own right. Kind of a waste of resources, if you ask me. The game could use more bosses. But nope, there's just this real badass enemy. For whatever reason, he's just a generic mook. Don't ask me why. A lot of people have said that, though. There's no reason for him to not be a boss. He's got all the traits of being a boss. Okay, let me pull up my my grace chart again. Oh yeah, it was 27 is the one I was doing. Alright, let's do that a couple times.
Sate.
'That's the thing about the underworld, though, that new players don't understand. It's not worth clearing everything. It's really only worth it if there's like a specific drop that you want. Even then, a lot of times it's faster to just run to the boss. The game doesn't really tell you that. It's better to just get as far as you can. Okay, you need to de-aggro. Surprised she hasn't de-aggroed yet. There we go. playing some Mario 3D World today. That game's pretty good. I haven't enjoyed a Mario game since, like, Galaxy. I thought Galaxy was pretty fun. The new Super Mario Brothers games series is, like, really soulless. Mario Maker I didn't really play that much. Mario Maker just has the problem of let anybody make a level, like 95% of them are going to be terrible. I didn't like Mario Odyssey at all, really. That was a one and done playthrough for me. I like saw the credits and I just like never played it again. That game just had really disjointed like content. It's like, okay, you want me to do this really long, difficult platforming challenge for 1 power star when I could just butt pound in a random spot and get one. Like, felt really disjointed to me. But Mario 3D World I'm really enjoying. It feels like something fresh. I don't know if I'll stream myself playing that though. It's probably something I'd probably just keep to myself, but it's a surprisingly good game. I'm glad it's not stuck on the Wii U anymore. It's hardly anybody got to play it. The Wii U was a pretty big failure. It just happens to have a lot of really good first-party games. No, I haven't tried Bowser's Fury yet because I never played the original. For Nintendo stuff, I skipped both the 3DS and the Wii U. So the infinite amount of Wii U ports doesn't really bother me, because I never really got to play those games. Bayonetta 2, Wonderful 101, Mario Kart. I never really got to play any of those games. Wii U was just kind of doomed from the start, because it came out at a really bad time. It came out like a year before the Xbox One and the PS4, so it's in this weird like half current gen, half last gen thing. And it got like barely any ports too. It felt like post Super Nintendo Nintendo consoles where the only reason to buy one was for first party. They had like no third party games. Sure as hell fixed that with the Switch though. The Switch has got an infinite amount of third party games, most of which are shitty, but the fact that they're there at all is nice. I think people tend to downplay that a lot when they complain about all the shit games. Yes, there's a lot of garbage on there. Yes, there's a lot of really bad mobile ports. Yes, there's a lot of ports that just run like shit in general, but it just means you need to do your research. I'm used to it from the Vita, as the Vita was the same way. There were lots of great games on the Vita that had horrible ports. You just can't buy stuff blindly on the Switch. That's the main thing about it. I bought a game on there, like, last week that the frame rate was so bad it, like, made me sick. And I can't refund. I'm stuck with it. It's very rare that I make a mistake like that, though. Mario Odyssey was just very weak in general. Felt like that game didn't know what it wanted to be. It's weird that like with all the like modern Mario games, like they want it to be like 64, but then they add like 5 times the amount of collectibles. This just makes things feel really disjointed because there's an uneven challenge. A lot of people have pointed that out about that game. It's like, okay, get stuck on this platforming challenge for like 10 minutes, or just ground pound something and get and get the same power star, the same reward basically. It's not like Mario 64 didn't have stuff like that, but the fact that there were only 120 of them meant that it was more balanced. It was a more equivalent amount of difficulty versus the time you spend. But in Odyssey, there were like, I don't know, hundreds of them or something. Way too many. Like, unnecessary amount. It's kind of why Collectathons kind of died. He died with like the 6th generation, the 5th generation pretty much. 5th and 6th generation. They stopped making those kinds of games because that's just like an inherent flaw with them. If you give people too much stuff to collect, they get really overwhelmed, and then it's really hard to make it feel like each one is actually worth getting, instead of just getting the ones that take like 2 seconds. I feel like Odyssey just kind of went overboard. There was a problem with stuff like Donkey Kong 64 as well. There were like 10 different currencies in that game. It's like a precursor to, predecessor to like service games. You have like 10 different currencies. Feels like studying exchange rates for a job or something. That's kind of how Donkey Kong 64 felt. Collectathons that have come out since then have condensed it. It's really only Odyssey that feels that way. Mario Odyssey just had the problem of the main gimmick of, like, possessing the enemies. It wasn't very interesting. It's like a creative gimmick, sure, but it's been done in stuff like Kirby way better. I don't remember really possessing any of the enemies that much. I remember doing it, like, basically when it was required. That's apparently the problem that Balan Wonderworld game has, is it's like the same type of thing, where you can turn into like enemies in different forms, but they all have like one move. They're not deep enough to really warrant not just having all that stuff on your character already. That game's getting thrashed though. I think that game's a good example of why having a demo for your game is a double-edged sword. If it's a really good game, if it's like, you know, Final Fantasy VII Remake quality, you know, AAA game that most people really liked, then maybe there's a chance. But if your game's not the best, it actually can hurt sales. Yeah, Collectathons basically became sandbox games. Open world sandbox games. They're basically Collectathons for adults. Because Collectathons were always like really cutesy stuff, you know, like animal characters and stuff. Very colorful graphics, mainly meant for kids, but appealing enough for adults. Collectathons basically just became sandbox games. The only Collectathons that are like the old ones, just, you know, some of the Mario games and stuff. Ukulele's another one that came out. I don't know much about Ukulele. I don't know if it has the problem that Mario Odyssey has. Nice thing about Mario Odyssey, though, is that it doesn't overstay its welcome. It only does if you try to get all the extra stuff, but that wasn't worth doing that for me. I felt like I got my money's out of it just seeing the credits. Yeah, I haven't played A Hat in Time yet. I have that game. I bought that game on a couple Steam sales ago. I heard that's a really good game. Kind of fixes a lot of the problem stuff like Odyssey has. A bunch of useless junk to collect and uninteresting gimmicks. That was the clincher about Mario Odyssey for me. It's like, there's too much stuff to collect. There's not enough equivalent reward for doing so. And then, like, the main gameplay gimmick felt tacked on. Not a bad game by any means, but if you want to play a collectathon, there's better ones out there. I feel like they haven't had, like, good Mario movement since, like, 64. Like, and I'm not saying that because I'm an old fart that was, like, 10 when that game came out, but that game had the coolest, like, parkour moveset, and ever since then, they kind of, like, they've de-emphasized a lot of that in modern Mario games for gimmicks that don't always play out well. The backpack in Sunshine is a pretty divisive thing, because it effectively removes a lot of the platforming. You know, if you could just hover for really long periods of time and get, like, really big jumps off it. Is it really a Mario game anymore? Odyssey had some decent stuff, but felt like a lot of it kind of went on the back burner for the possession mechanic. So it wasn't anywhere near interesting or deep enough to carry a whole game. And yeah, open world games are like legit stressful to play. That shit's like being an adult that has to wake up at like 8 in the morning and do like 5 important responsible things. That's kind of how open world games feel now. Those games are a good example of how it actually is possible to have too much content. Something like this, where the meat of the game is the combat, you know, I would love it if they just expanded upon this game forever. Because just things like adding a new moveset. Things like just adding a new moveset, or like a bunch of new enemies or bosses or loot, can, like, completely change how the game is played. But in those open world games, it's just it's too much of a good thing. There's just way too much shit in them. It's very overwhelming to play them. And a lot of it is completely pointless too. It's really just there to give you the illusion that there's a lot of stuff to do, and usually there actually isn't. I liked how Dynasty Warriors 9, as much as people rag on that game, I like how it did the open world, because you didn't really have to interact with it much. Like, the first couple of campaigns you do, you definitely had to interact with it, but they gave you a fast travel point, like, every 20 seconds, so once you get past the hurdle of exploring most of the map, you never really had to travel anywhere. And a lot of the crafting stuff got power crept pretty hard as they kept updating it. I think if you played that game fresh now, you could basically just skip most of that. It wouldn't really be that much different from just playing a map. Most open world games don't do that though. They want to waste your time. But with, like
さて
Dynasty Warriors 9, it's like, okay, we yield. We realize we don't have the infinite budget of Rockstar and Ubisoft to shit out an open world with like 5 billion boring things to do. It's like, we're just gonna let you fast travel all over this and give you a horse that moves at like the speed of sound. Interesting way to approach it for sure. It's interesting how Empires is gonna be, it's not going to be open world. Which I think will help. It's one of the worst things about the open world in 9 was the fact that none of the battles felt like real battles. There were like maybe 2 or 3 battles in that game that actually felt like an actual war was going on. Everything else was just, oh no, they're invading the town, and there's just basically just amounts to all the NPCs in the town disappearing and just a bunch of dudes standing around merchant stands. The open world in itself was not bad, but the fact that an open world just doesn't work for the trappings of being a Muso. I think that was the main problem with it. You can't really make things feel like a battle when everything is a vast expanse of nothing. And all the outposts and stuff were all like copy pasted. Mario just has the problem of being so damn old. It's been around for like over 35 years at this point. If you count Donkey Kong, it's been around for like 40 years. It just has the trappings of being a franchise that's been around for like 6 console generations. It's like they try to do new things with it, but sometimes it'd be better if they just iterated on what worked. That's always been my problem with modern Mario games. We haven't really made like a straight parkour Mario game since 64. They've all had some kind of gimmick of varying depth and satisfaction to use. Yeah, the hat toss was decent. But the thing that sucks about Mario Odyssey is you could completely take out the mechanic where you possess the enemies and the game would not be any worse for it. which is why I don't really think it was a good mechanic. It was just kind of there. It felt like it was them trying to meet an innovation quota instead of something that actually really was meaningful. I really only used it when I had to. Yeah, Mario Odyssey is a good speed run. It's like an hour long. That game is definitely very backloaded. Like the campaign you can beat in like two casual sittings. But then like if you really like the game and you want to do all the extra stuff, then there's a lot more. But I didn't like the game enough to bother with any of that shit, so I just did one. I won and done that game. That's what happens when you have mechanics that aren't fun. It really can kind of dampen the replay value. You need to have a good balance of mechanics and make sure that at least most of them are really well polished. I haven't played Dragon's Dogma yet. I played it a little bit. I kind of got turned off by the fact that it's one of those games where you need like 500 mods to make it fun, and I've been too lazy to set it up. I've had a lot of people recommend that game to me. I just haven't gotten around to it. I have the game. I just haven't really played it. Well, the problem with open world games is they have the same problem that collectathons do, which is why I think that collectathons are basically the successor. I mean, open world games are the successor to collectathons. A lot of the stuff you do is just pointless, and it's there to just pad it out. And if the game's not fun enough, there's no point in doing any of that. You can easily just ignore all of it. And when you can ignore most of the content in a game, it's generally not a very well-designed game. You should have to interact with most of it and continue to be engaged and have like meaningful reasons to do it. Not just, you know, I need to go find like 10,000 coins or something and there's like no tangible reward for doing so. It's just busy work. That's always been my problem with it. There's lots of mods for that game. There's like moveset mods. There's infinite stamina, so you can sprint forever. There's like, I guess you can have like infinite inventory space or something. There's lots of stuff for it, but it's been kind of daunting as a new player. I don't know what stuff is good. I've had just an overwhelming amount of shit to play and projects in my inbox and stuff. I just haven't really had time. Especially now that I'm dual-wielding jobs and I'm over there like twice a day, helping with the kiddies and stuff that needs to be done around their house.
Maidari? 私も
まだまだ隠居は先。
またど
土産部。
I generally can't stand open world games. I put up with Dynasty Warriors 9. That game was a guilty pleasure. It was a guilty pleasure. It was fun to play for what it was. But that game does a really good job of making you effectively not have to ever interact with the open world past a certain point. That game got it pretty much. It's just like, you know, explore it thoroughly, like, once or twice, and then you can actually just get to whatever it is you're trying to do. For an open world game, that game did a pretty good job of not wasting your time. Which is ironic because it's not really a good open world game at all. But there are good elements of it. The fact that you can get around really fast once you level up the horse and you have a fast travel point like every couple seconds of gameplay. I think that actually made exploring the map more meaningful than the big AAA open world games where things are just big for no reason and everything's designed to just pad it out as long as possible. That was what was kind of interesting about Dynasty Warriors 9. There were some things that did better than the big games. Worst thing about Dynasty Warriors 9's open world, though, is that, like, I don't know how they didn't catch that in development, but open world and Muso games don't mix, because for most people who don't just like the combat, the most interesting thing about Muso games is the fact that you're actually on a battlefield and things are actually happening, and you have to go around and help and make sure that, you know, plans go through and everything. And it has to, generally, it feels like an actual battle. You know, obviously there's liberties taken, you're playing like basically a demigod that can knock out like 10,000 people in a couple minutes, but it still felt like an actual fight. But due to being an open world game, there are like a total of like 3 or 4 fights in that game that felt like an actual battle. Because that's what happens when you're not instanced. You can't really have cool battles like that when the world is not instanced and it's all seamless open world. That's probably why Empires is not open world. You could probably recycle a lot of the assets from the vanilla game and just make like actual battlefields out of them. I think that would be the ideal situation for that game. I mostly play the games for the combat, so it didn't bother me that much, but you have to admit, it tells you a town's being taken over and it's just the same town you're in, but all the NPCs are gone. It's just a bunch of random peons and officers everywhere. Like, by no definition of the word does that feel like an actual Muso battle. Feels like pretty much every other open world game where the enemies are just kind of plastered around in random places. thing that I hated about Dynasty Warriors 9 was the fucking community. People that hate the game so much but watch like 80 hours of content on it every day and complain to me that the game was bad and calling me a shill and stuff. I don't know, that game made me kind of disillusioned from a large portion of the Musou community. How stupid some people are. Like, life is short. Stop wasting your time on things you don't like. I never really understood it myself. Like, if you hate the game that much, why are you watching so much stuff about it? Like, don't take it out on me that the game is not what you wanted. The game is a fun, guilty pleasure. There are some things that it does right that are very underappreciated. Like, an open world that actually goes out of its way to not waste your time. There are a lot of problems with that game, sure, but it's not a complete piece of shit like everybody says it is. And I just got tired of getting the brunt of all the problems people have with it because they can't actually direct that feedback towards the people who actually made the damn thing instead of just me. I'm just a content creator. Yes, I've been playing Musou games for 20 years, but I don't have any direct influence on how they're made. That's why I stopped playing that game on the channel. I just straight up uninstalled it. I still liked playing it, just messing around. Definitely had that kind of Grand Theft Auto appeal to it. Just go on and just beat up some guys. But every time I played it, those random nobody trolls would come back. And it really wasn't healthy for me to keep playing it. That's why I'm not sure if, even if I did like Empire's games, if I'd bother with that game. I feel like the community's gotten worse since then. Like, if you don't like the games anymore and you don't like the direction, then stop playing them. Yes, it sucks that Musou is, there aren't as many people making Musou games as other genres. You know, like MMOs and hunting games and platformers and stuff and fighting games. There's lots of developers to choose from, but with Musou, it's pretty much Capcom, and they don't make them anymore. Koei, and then the ones that make the generally bad clones, like Tamsoft. I understand that there's not many others competitors to choose from, but if you don't like it anymore, it's okay to stop playing it. I always believe that games are done when you stop having fun. It's not about getting all the achievements or whatever. If you don't like playing the game, then you should just stop. Move on to something else. That's why I'm not really an achievement hunter. You know, I could dump like 300 hours into a game like this, but I don't care about the achievements. A lot of times they're unfun, and they're just boring grinding, or they force me to play in a way I don't want. I don't really need a platinum trophy thing to tell me that I'm good at video games. I know I'm pretty good at video games. I think people put too much weight into that kind of thing. It's perfectly fine to not go for all that stuff, or not go for 100%, or just stop playing when you're not having fun. Having fun with the game and still enjoying it should be, like, the main priority.
Let us begin.
like getting like no accessories tonight. I might switch to something else before I go to bed. This has been pretty fruitless tonight, not gonna lie. The only thing I've really accomplished today is, well, this one's got potential. Only thing I've really accomplished on this today was just upping my gear level a little bit. I haven't really gotten anything else. Actually, there's 2 good accessories here. 2 decent ones at least. So I'm gonna pop those in the stone, and that'll be it for this game tonight. Got a couple other new games to play. What games have you guys been playing lately? I've been doing emulation on the phone. I've been playing BiS. Reinstalled Godfall. East 9 I need to get back to. Mario 3D World. Cyber Shadow I tried, but I didn't really like that game. That game is definitely one of my biggest disappointments for a while. I was really looking forward to that game. It ended up not being what I wanted it to be. Although apparently a lot of people agree with me, that game is a very divisive reception. More than I thought. I thought it would just be like, you know, younger kids trying to play it and not liking NES games, but, you know, it's actually getting pretty harsh criticism, honest criticism from people who are around for that time like I was. Problem with Cyber Shadow is it tries to be like a progression-based game, but the problem is it's literally has less mechanics than Ninja Gaiden on the NES from like 30 years ago. And when you start, it's really boring. And the game's not really long enough to warrant even having it be like that in the first place. A lot of people have said that game only gets fun when you get everything, but at that point there's nothing left to do. There's no New Game Plus or anything. So you don't get the luxury of like having your full moveset and going through the game again. That would make it work better. Lots of questionable level design in that game too. It's like they wanted you to go fast, but then the level design actively prevents you from doing so. That's why I didn't really play that game on the channel. I got like halfway through it. It seems like the developer is actually being a pretty good sport with the feedback and criticism he's getting, so I'm sure after a couple patches I'll probably go back to that game. It's definitely disappointing though. Missed the mark in a lot of areas. So generally when you think of a ninja game, you think of being able to go fast, but Cyber Shadow has a really glacial pace, really slow progression, and then not the best level design either. I played Hades. Yeah, I don't think Hades is as great as people say it is. Mechanically, it's very one-dimensional. Overall package and presentation and the design of Hades is really good, but if you're looking for like melee combat roguelikes, there's infinitely better games than that. The thing about Hades is it's better designed overall than a lot of those other games. Problem with a lot of action roguelikes is they're too damn long. What happens there is you get way too invested and it feels like you hit a plateau until you just get to that point where you have things unlocked or you're just better at the game. One of the things Hades nails that I really liked about it, better than the actual gameplay, is that the runs are like half an hour long. So all the progression with like the story and the gameplay and stuff works really well because the runs don't overstay their welcome. The actual gameplay of Hades I really don't think is that great. There's way better action roguelikes out there, especially ones that specialize in melee combat like Hades does. I wouldn't call Hades bottom of the barrel in terms of actual gameplay mechanics, but very simple game. It's just part of why it's so popular. You don't have to be like a masochist playing something like this to enjoy it. I only put like 30 hours into it. It didn't really grab me. A lot of these roguelikes that come out now, like the action ones, they think that they can be like hour long for a run. That's just an excessive amount to me. You should be able to finish an action roguelike in like an hour. Especially action ones. I mean, if it's like a more traditional roguelike, you can have it be longer because those games don't require as much focus. You know, like actual roguelikes, the ones that don't have like action combat and stuff. That's a deal breaker for roguelikes for me. I love action roguelikes, but once they start getting over an hour long per run, I lose interest. That's one of the things that Hades really nails that a lot of people don't talk about. They talk about the art style and the narrative and, you know, everything else about it. That's a roguelike that actually respects your time. You know, the whole loop of dying and getting like new gameplay elements and more narrative and stuff, the reason why it all works is because the runs are very short. I feel like Hades would be a terrible game if the runs were like an hour long. Like, that game would not function in the slightest if the runs were like an hour long. It's good that they noticed that while they were making it. They made sure to not, like, content bloat the game. At least not, like, the game has a lot of content, but just getting to the ending, having it take, like, half an hour or less really works. It helps make the other progression, the meta progression, really, flows that way. But mechanically, Hades isn't really that great. Hades' combat is greatly carried by the fact that there's like literal thousands of builds that you can make. Yeah, and the decisions you make during the runs and stuff. The combat's really nothing special. Which again is probably part of the reason why it's so popular. You don't have to be a masochist playing like something like what I'm playing right now. Just be a normal gamer and get enjoyment out of that. It's not really asking a lot of you, unless you start getting into like the heat levels and stuff, but that's mostly just for hardcore players. You can see the true ending just playing on the easiest difficulty. melee roguelikes, there's way better choices than Hades. There's Wizard of Legend. There's Curse of the Dead Gods. Bloody Spell, if you count it, but Bloody Spell is admittedly a pretty shit roguelike. Bloody Spell is a good game, but it's a terrible roguelike. Hades is just, it's a good overall package, but if you're looking for, like, combat death, then it falls flat, in my opinion. That's why I couldn't really spend a lot of time with it. I got the epilogue. I saw, like, the true ending of it, and I kind of felt done with it at that point. The action roguelikes I could dump, like, hundreds of hours into are the ones that have, like, really solid, deep gameplay, and Hades doesn't really have that. I mean, there's definitely skill involved, especially if you start doing, like, the challenges, the heat levels and stuff, but yeah, the combat's very one-dimensional. I tried Enter the Gungeon, and right away, the first problem I had with that game was that it took me like half an hour to get out of the first 2 levels. And the runs were like over an hour long. I noped out of that game pretty fast. That's way too long for a roguelike, in my opinion. Start to get way too invested at that point. Like I said, that's what Hades nails the most. Runs are long enough to feel satisfying, like actually beating it, especially when you're a new player and you don't have that much stuff. Feels really good, but the game also does not overstay its welcome. Which helps things like the narrative and all the other progression really flow well. Even if you get bodied in that game, you're still making progress, and it doesn't take literally more than half an hour to get back. If your next run clears, then it takes like half an hour. Because I had that game in early access, and I always thought that they were going to make the same mistake a lot of other roguelikes do when they launch in early access and add like 10 more levels. I definitely have played some roguelikes that are like better in early access than when they're finished because they suffer from content bloat. Dead Cells and Hades, I don't really like those games that much, but they definitely do having a boatload of content way better than a lot of other ones. Dead Cells kind of has like the beat 'em up path system going for it, so you know they've added like 5 or 6 levels to that game since launch, but you're only going to see a couple of them a run, so it prevents the run length from getting out of hand. I think Dead Cells would also be a real shitty roguelike if all those levels they added were like mandatory. Because then the runs would be like 2 hours long for a casual player, which is just way too much. Stop giving me that damn grace. I heard of the Monkey King game. Yeah, that looks cool, but that's not coming out anytime soon. Alright, I'm gonna play something else. Shit luck tonight. Let me show my Steam library for a second. You guys can see some other non-Hades roguelikes that have like much better combat, if that's your thing. So I've got a couple here. Children of Morta, I haven't finished this game. This game is actually pretty good. It's definitely more similar to Hades in that it has like a very strong narrative, but you don't actually have to clear the whole thing in one sitting. You only have to clear each level in one sitting, so that helps. It's not quite structured like Hades, but it does have some similarities. How the narrative is one of the things that's supposed to keep you going, but the gameplay is not bad either. But they're really only asking like 20 minutes per run for the dungeons and stuff. There's lots of meta progression. Curse of the Dead Gods. I bought this game. This leaves early access in 10 days. It has some similarities to Hades, but it has much deeper combat. It's less about having crazy builds that break the game and stuff. It's more about actual skill. At least from what little I played it, I've only done like 3 runs on it, but definitely more of a skill-based roguelike. Uh, Skull's decent, but Skull's got some really bad. The runs are kind of long for one thing, and also the balancing is not the best either. All the human bosses are pretty awful because they just fill the screen with crap, and your character's not really equipped to avoid it. I play this game on rookie mode, and it gets much more manageable, but they actually have acknowledged the fact that it's got a lot of balancing issues that they need to work out. Really high quality game though, great music, beautiful pixel art, decent gameplay. It's got a decent balance between, Binding of Isaac type roguelike stuff where you just get really busted builds, but then like actually having it be skill based too. The main problem I have with it though is that it feels like a lot of times, unless you want to play really slow, you can't avoid a lot of damage, and it kind of really kills the pacing. The worst thing about this game is the heroes you fight, which are basically NPCs, bosses. You fight one, two, then three, and then you fight uh, one of them randomly at the end of the game. And those fights just feel awful. They're really dragged out. Depending on what combination you get, it's just a screen full of projectiles and can't do much. I recommend this game though. I think the biggest mistake they made with this game was they did what I like to call a one and done early access, where they just like straight up added the other half of the game. And that's kind of the problem with doing early access that way. When you do it more incrementally, like Hades, where they added like the ending and the extra levels and all the other components and stuff over time. When it comes out of early access, it had a hell of lot less problems. But with this game, they literally added the second half of the game in one patch. And when you do that, it just creates a bunch of balancing issues and stuff. And I think that was a mistake on their part. They should have just added the other 2 levels incrementally over the course of a few months. And now they kind of have the problem of there's a lot of people have bought the game. It's a critical and financial success, I'm sure, but due to the way they poorly handled early access, it's got a hell of a lot of balancing issues and stuff. And I don't know if anybody's really going to care by the time they fix it. I wouldn't call it a bad early access game that I played, but I definitely feel like they should have learned from other roguelikes that have done early access, that have done it way better. The fact that the game is as good as it is, despite the fact that they just like added the other half of it randomly in the 1.0 release, is honestly crazy. That's an anomaly for you right there, but it's got a long ways to go. Scourgebringer's a melee roguelike. This game's decent. I didn't like it as much as I thought, but it definitely nails the pacing. The runs in this game are really short. The main problem with this game in early access kind of had the same problem Skull had, where they added a lot to the end, and they added a lot in 1.0, but in early access, this game was a pretty shitty roguelike because there wasn't really any semblance of builds or anything. It felt like you were just playing like procedurally generated levels. It didn't really feel like a roguelike where you have like builds and synergies and stuff to look forward to. But that's kind of the downside to making a skill-based action roguelike. Because I've played a lot of skill-based action roguelikes. That tends to be a common problem that they have. If you actually make a roguelike based around, maybe like 50 to 80% player skill, and like the other half is just RNG and stuff. It's really hard to make the runs feel different. That's kind of what this game suffers from, even in 1.0. It's a really fun game to play. It's satisfying to nail all the mechanics and stuff, but as a roguelike, it really doesn't offer that much. I feel like the best melee roguelike would probably be Wizard of Legend. Wizard of Legend does a lot of things right. The fact that the enemies are fair, you have a lot of builds and synergies and stuff, but it's also skill based. And runs in this are like 20 to 30 minutes too, so it doesn't overstay its welcome. The downside to Wizard of Legend is the fact that there's like no mods for it. There were mods for it for a time. I played with a lot of the mods. I got all the achievements on this game. I played with a lot of the mods after I got 100%. But the guy that did all the mods just like abandoned the game. Wizard of Legend would have a lot more replay value if it had mods, but unfortunately it's not blessed with mods. There's a couple others here. 20XX. I don't know if it's worth playing now because the sequel is coming out in like 4 days, but really good skill-based roguelike that actually has a decent amount of synergies and builds and stuff. It's really hard to find action roguelikes that have both of those things. Generally, it's like you get one or the other. You have either it's like Isaac, where it's like 70% RNG and like 30% skill, or you have action roguelikes where it's like 70% skill and then like 30% RNG, which just creates the problem of, they aren't good roguelikes because there's no replay value because the game is too heavily weighted on your skill. 20XX did a really good job with that, especially since it's a platforming roguelike. It's really hard to find good games like that too. This game had a good balance of, even if you had like busted combat abilities and builds and stuff, you could still get bodied by the platforming and the obstacles and stuff. Kind of had a really interesting balance to it. Better than a lot of other stuff I played. The sequel is kind of just more of the same, but it's in pixel art, which is nice, and then it also has a lot of new features and stuff. It's going to have a level editor too, so you'll be able to make like custom campaigns and stuff. And good level chunks are going to get added to the game as well, which is great for replay value. So you won't run out of level chunks too quickly. Corridor of Time is definitely one of the better like action roguelikes. The problem is that it's all in Chinese, and they kind of just dump the game out of early access. This game is pretty legit though. I really enjoyed it. I played this game for quite a bit. They were supposed to add like console ports and mobile ports to this and stuff, but the people making it like broke up or something, and they just kind of stopped. It's unfortunate. Pretty solid game. I definitely enjoyed it. Bloody Spell is kind of a roguelike, but they got smart and they took out all the roguelike tags because the only thing that was different in the campaigns was like the loot that dropped. But they kind of de-emphasized that as time went on. It's really not a roguelike anymore. Which is good because it would have been one of the worst roguelikes. It's way too long for one thing, and there's not anywhere near enough variety. Oh, they added a bloody palace to this game? That's pretty cool. I haven't tried this game yet. It's way out of my impulse buy range. It's like 30 bucks. What's up, Gro? Oh, they have Hundun in this game? Definitely doesn't look as cool as the Hundun in Orochi. That's more accurate to what Hundun's actually supposed to look like, though. Supposed to be like a big red butt thing. It's not supposed to be like a badass demon with wings. The Orochi one's definitely a lot better overall. Pass on that. Nowhere near my kind of game. Well, there's not really that many interesting roguelikes coming out right now, are there? Been a lot of them coming out. None of them really seem like they would top any of the stuff I've already played. I was kind of looking at this one, but I hear this one needs a hell of a lot of work, so I'm waiting on that one. 30XX I'm obviously going to buy. 20XX is like my most played roguelike of all time. Really looking forward to that. Persona 5 Strikers? No. A hard pass on that game. I heard it's like 70% talking and cutscenes, and then the combat's like not that great either. I think I would actively hate playing that game. I know people would like to see it, but I'm not about to drop 60 bucks on something I really know I would not like. Thing about Strikers is that it's trying to be like an actual sequel to the Persona game, so that comes with all the trappings of that, needing a fuck ton of cutscenes and talking and stuff. And then the gameplay is kind of like secondary. I don't think I'd like it, especially somebody who doesn't. I don't like the Persona games. They're not my kinds of games at all. It's nothing for me there, really. I've got enough shit in my backlog. I'm not desperate enough to play that. I probably would get a little bit of fun out of it, but not $60 worth. And I would be actively bored sitting through all those cutscenes. I don't think it would be enjoyable to watch me play that. So I'd mostly just be complaining about the cutscenes. Maybe enjoy the actual gameplay, but not enough to sit through all that. It's not a wise choice for me to get that game. There hasn't been anything going on in Muso for a while now. I tried Hyrule Warriors, but the frame rate was so shitty that I just I just flushed that game. I hated playing it. It made me feel really sick. I don't think there's been a 60 FPS patch for it either. I was kind of waiting to for that to be on emulation at 60 FPS, but nobody's done it yet. That game is like unplayable. Frame rate is terrible. I'm surprised Nintendo allowed them to put out a first party game that runs that bad. The thing about first party Nintendo games, they always have like a very clean art style, like responsive controls, and then they're almost always like a locked 60 FPS. There's a couple exceptions, but generally that's how it's always been. But then like Hyrule Warriors 2, Age of Calamity was like that was like a massive game. That was like the only thing they had at the end of last year. They didn't really have any other games. It's kind of weird that they just let them put it out like that. I feel like they should have told them to like find a way to make it run at 60, or at the very least make it a locked 30. I played that game for like 6 hours. I started feeling really sick. I felt like I had to throw up multiple times playing it, so for my physical health, I had to stop. I could not play that game. So it should seem like a decent game, but I physically cannot play that game. I'm not about to throw up for this channel. I already sacrificed a hell of a lot to run this. Mentally and financially, I make a lot of sacrifices to run this. But I've got to draw the line somewhere. I'm not going to make myself physically sick for a video game. It was fun enough for what it was, but the physical aspect of it, I couldn't play it. No, they're not going to do Basara. Probably not for a while. They're too stupid to even port the damn games to like a more accessible platform. It's odd that like Koei eventually realized that hey, we don't need to spend like thousands of dollars on getting AAA voice actors to dub these games when we can just have them in Japanese and people will still buy them. And like Muso fans generally tend to be weebs anyway, so they hate English dubs. So it kind of just worked out in the end. But I guess Capcom feels like they need to dub it because all their other stuff is dubbed. And that's what prevented them from being localized because they spent way too much money on 3's localization. They didn't actually market the damn thing. I only knew about it because I was heavily involved in the Muso community. The marketing was terrible, and they spent way too much money on it, and they didn't make their money back. So that's one of the things that killed the franchise. And the other part is the suits don't let them make any damn games. They have to make stupid stuff like those guitars and shit and the rice cookers that are like pointless. Basara's kind of become the opposite of what like a tokusatsu is these days. Because with tokusatsu, it's like the show is there to sell toys. You know, the shows are really cool. They have pretty decent stories, decent acting most of the time, and then they have really kick-ass live-action fight scenes, which are very hard to find, no matter what your standards are. But the show is there to sell the toys, first and foremost. So if there's no show, there's no toys. That's why despite how much Sentai and Kamen Rider have like fluctuated in ratings and stuff and toy sales, it still keeps going because they still make money. But with Basara, it's like the opposite of that. Like it got to the point where they don't need to make games to have it be a successful franchise. They have so much supplemental stuff like merchandise and the stage plays and the animes and stuff. It's like the complete opposite of like Super Sentai and Kamen Rider where there has to be a show. There doesn't have to be a game anymore, which sucks for us because obviously being gaijins that don't live in Japan, you don't have access to any of that stuff. So for us, the franchise is essentially dead, even though it's still alive and kicking. They're just not making games for it anymore. It's pretty rare for that to happen. Generally with stuff like that, like I said, Tokusatsu, Ultraman, Kamen Rider, and stuff like they still have to keep making. They still have to keep making the main media, which is with Tokusatsu it's the TV show, and then with video games it's the game. But Basara kind of like surpassed that somehow, which is doesn't happen very often. They got to a position where they realized they can make boatloads of money with stuff that costs nothing, like stage plays and merchandise and other stuff that we don't care about because we don't live there. It's not even about not speaking the language, it's just like not living there. We don't have access to that stuff. Obviously, the language barrier is a problem for some people, but I wouldn't call it only in Japan. It's just that they managed to do something that Kamen Rider hasn't managed to do. Because Kamen Rider did do that for a while. Like in the 90s, there was like no Kamen Rider stuff. They had like three movies, and then it was just kind of dead for like 7 years. They kept it alive with like merchandise and stuff, but it wasn't to the point that Basara is at right now. They eventually had to keep making shows. With Basara, it's like I guess they just don't want to make games anymore. And I think another part of the problem too is that they are too strapped staff wise to devote time to a Basara when they have like all hands on deck trying to make stuff for the new consoles because those consoles have like 5 games on them. There's no games in those damn things whatsoever. It's complete barren wasteland. There's no games on it, so I don't think they can really. I think that's part of the problem too, is they can't justify wasting resources on something like Basara, which is only going to be sold in Japan and like parts of Asia, when they can dump all those people on the 10,000th Resident Evil and Monster Hunter game, which have more worldwide appeal and will inevitably make way more money. I think that's part of it too that people aren't really realizing. It's not good timing for a new Basara. As much as I want one, as much as everybody else. You're not going to dump 100 people on a Basara game when they can shackle them down to make the 10,000th Resident Evil game and make way more money and actually be able to sell it outside of Japan. That's just the unfortunate reality of it. As game development gets more expensive, companies are a lot less likely to take risks like that. It's not like making a Basara game would make them bankrupt or anything, but they have a finite amount of people to make these games, and it takes like way more time and money than it used to. That's why indie games are pretty cool. That's why I like a lot of smaller games, because there's still like innovation happening and more of an emphasis on gameplay instead of needing 4K graphics and everything to look photorealistic. You can still find games that actually have fucking gameplay. But on the AAA side, they don't have as many people as they need, especially right now, trying to make a game during a pandemic. It makes way more sense to make them turn out another Monster Hunter or Resident Evil and make another Basara. That's just the unfortunate reality of the situation. Unless they decided to like try again and try to make it a more worldwide thing, but the problem with Basara is that they never wanted to just admit defeat and just make it Japanese only. Just make the voices Japanese only and just translate it like Koei does. I think it would have had an honest chance, but Capcom standards are too high and they wanted to make it a big deal, which just made it cost way too much because they got like the best voice. They were all like LA voice actors. Pretty much the majority of the voice acting industries in the state I'm in, California, they're all in like LA and around there. So they got all those people to do it, and they don't come cheap. Especially a game like that that actually has a decent amount of voice dialogue. They should not have done that, honestly. I think they would have had a chance to make more money off it. It was a very misguided attempt at making it more accessible, but it killed the chances of it actually making a profit. Alright, I'm gonna take my meds, and then I'll be right back. Alright, I took my meds. For those of you that watch my ass o'clock streams like this, I have mental illness. I have to take meds to manage it, and the meds help me sleep. They don't knock me out, but generally after I take them, I'm not awake for much longer. So I'm gonna install the new update for the DMC5 trainer. Check that out, and then I'm probably just gonna call it a night. Don't really have enough energy to start up anything else right now. So give me a few minutes here. I gotta get this set up. So they added some pretty nice stuff for Nero I wanted to check out. Nero, like, kind of had to stop playing him because he hurts my hands. Let's see here. Yeah, faster charges with Nero means you have to hold the button down a hell of a lot less, which is a lot healthier for my hands. Nero's actively kind of shitty to play. You need to hold the buttons down too much. I got pretty monster cramps playing him in 4. Yeah, DMC community. There's a lot of good things about the community that people don't realize. Problem is, it's all overshadowed by all the low effort shit posts and memes. There are some really rad people in this community, though. You got to admit, they have managed to fix like almost every issue with this game. From the most like minute stuff to like straight up adding co-op and like adding legendary Dark Knight mode to PC and like adding reversals back and turbo mode and everything. They legit have just like completely fixed it. It's kind of uncanny when you think about it, how much they've done. They've done more for it than Capcom has, honestly, which is the depressing part. Capcom hasn't really done shit for this game. It's been like an 80-20 split between the community and Capcom. Especially since they keep treating the PC players like second-class citizens. Why the hell don't we have official turbo mode? We should have had that ages ago. It's pretty bullshit if you ask me. Obviously our computers can run it. It's really unfair. It doesn't matter now, everything's added in. It's just the principle of it, it's stupid. We bought the damn game first. We bought the damn thing first, paid full price for it. We didn't get it for like $10. Feel like we should have we shouldn't completely miss out on all of that just because they don't want to port it over. It's unfair to the PC players. You shouldn't have to mod all this stuff in. That's the issue. It's great that the community can do it, but by no circumstance should they have to. This thing should be in the game already. I can understand like they can't do turbo mode and LDK on consoles because the last gen consoles can barely run the game as it is, but there's no excuse for it to not be on PC. They're relatively easy to add. Since there's no limitation on hardware besides what's out, and you don't really need a beast rig to run this game at like 1080p 120 FPS. You turn a couple things off and you're good. That's the double-edged sword about Capcom ports.
Devil May Cry.
They're better than a lot of the other Japanese studios. They have better ports overall, but they like to screw over their PC players a lot. Like they'll put they'll re-release the game on console and then like not put any of that stuff on PC. Which makes you feel like an idiot for buying it on PC. Because you always get the short end of the stick. At least we still have the best version of the game, but I feel like it should not need to be modded to this extent to have parity with what the PS5 and Xbox X players have. Alright, you guys want to see the window? I already did a video on this, but I'll go ahead and show it really quick. You see some of the stuff they've added. Yeah, the source really quick. You guys can see it. Let's make that big really quick. They added some new stuff.
Gerber!
See how extensive this is. This is fucking crazy. There's so much stuff in here. It's nuts. Dante's got the least stuff right now because he, a lot of his stuff needs to be ported over again. Yeah, pretty crazy shit. I'm gonna mess around with this for a little bit and go to bed. Oh, I gotta set the... Hold on, the thing's not working anymore. What happened? Let me try backing out. It's weird. Let's try that again. Oh. Why is that not popping up again? It's weird. I don't want to reboot the game. It takes too long. It takes too long. Why did the trainer stop coming up? It's weird.
Get out of my sight!
I can't get back in there. What the hell? Oh, no wonder it was like Alt-Tab somehow. That was my fault. Alright, well, let's get back in there and fix it. It launches in a separate window.
Devil May Cry.
I had a pretty good shift today. My neighbor actually did most of the work today because she's been incapacitated for like a year. But it's still tiring going over there. Neighbor's brother is going to be back within the next few weeks, so I should have more time for the channel at that point. Right now, I kind of don't. Not that I don't, it's just... It's just I've had less energy overall, and that's kind of been the problem. That's why I've got such a fucking massive backlog of projects and shit I just haven't gotten to. on, I'm setting this up. I don't feel like making another source. Just bear with me here. Alright.
Punchline! Out of the way!
Not bad, eh? Super sexy!
Out of the way! Get out of my sight! Helter Skelter!
Oh wow, the quick charge is really nice. It's a lot easier on my hands.
Get out of my sight! Get in there! Punchline!
Turn off that other thing. I'm not used to that yet. Kind of I need to move with these a little slower. I have too many changes on. I haven't played in a while.
Out of the way!
Baller! Aw, yeah! Sassy!
Punchline! Out of the way!
Groovy, baby!
Punchline! Go, baby, go! Helter Skelter! Devil break. Get out of my sight! Devil Get out of my sight! Help the skeleton. Help the
Fast
skeleton.
charge is really nice. I like barely have to hold the buttons down. This gives me really monster cramps. I really like Nero in this game. He feels more interesting than the last game, but still fucking murder on my hands.
Get out of my sight!
Problem now is I'm like 13 years older than I was when the first game came out, so I can't withstand as much punishment as I used to. As great as DMC is, it's really shitty for accessibility.
Punchline.
A lot of the inputs for the moves and stuff are really inconsiderate of people who have hand injuries or other physical disabilities. So it's great that they have stuff like this. It doesn't make the game easier, it's just easier on your hands, which is more important than the game with the difficulty. You need your hands for everything, not just playing video games. It's nice to have some mercy there.
Give him a little taste of the good shit! Devil break. Out of the way! Be gone! Punchline. Devil break. Help the skeleton. Out of the way!
Super sexy!
Now you buffer that? See if I can buffer that. I'm gonna push it first. Yeah, you can. Yeah, DMC is, don't get me wrong, they're still some of the best character action games, but they're the least accessible. I'm not talking about the gameplay, it's the controls. Sometimes you need to hold like 4 buttons down at once to do a move, which for a lot of people is either really hard or it's impossible. That's why I mostly play Dante and Virgil in that game, because Nero, he hasn't fucked up my hands. I've taken pretty good care of my hands. I don't do a lot of long sessions. I drink a lot of water. I eat a lot of bananas and stuff, which helps to basically remove a lot of the risk of arthritis and carpal tunnel and stuff. But it still hurts my hands, and a cramp can like make it really hard for me to do my job for like days at a time. So it's really cool. I really enjoyed playing as Nero for those few minutes right there, because it wasn't fucking hell on my hands. My hands don't feel like they're gonna fall off. A lot of that is because of the charge window being reduced. I don't have to hold the button down as much. You can actually buffer it from a lot of moves just natively like that. It feels way better to play. Not just in fun factor, but like not having mangled hands. I guess it helps that I hate Smash Brothers. I never played a lot of Smash Brothers Melee. I basically just did like I did the single player content on that game and then like never played it again. Smash Brothers Melee is another game that really fucks up your hands. Actually, Smash in general with the GameCube controller. GameCube controller is not very ergonomic. So, that's the reason why I'm here right now. I can still game for like hours a day. It's because I never played Smash Brothers much. I feel bad for that community. That game is fucking unplayable during the pandemic. At least the latest one is. The netcode is horrible. I admire them for having the patience to play offline for so many years, because the games don't have online, and the ones that do have really garbage netcode. It must suck to like suddenly have that just taken away from you for a year. That basically goes to the extent of the fighting game community as a whole, though. We have some of the most competitive games out there, but we have the worst fucking netcode. They can't be played. Oops. Muscle memory's kind of gone. Not gone, but not as good as it used to be. Have a played this in a while. Bad start. I'm not using the power rod very well right now. I'm getting tired. I didn't get the Lindas. Got them all bunched up there. Wow. He's not messing around today. Usually just not do that. Alright, I haven't played in a while. It's fine. There goes my no-miss bonus, though. Gotta hit him off axis. Bastard. Took a life off me. Still got 5 lives. Ah, I can't parry today. That was a pretty bad raft. Really sloppy play all around. I haven't played this in a while, so better than I thought it would be. This is actually a pretty decent run. I can still parry him at least. Next food's a ways off. I handled that last screen really poorly. Lose some time here. Clean parry. Food should be over here. After the Tony Jaws. Let's just go get that right now. Pick it up! Classic beat 'em up dilemma. The character won't pick up the food. This guy's still not dead. Probably gonna lose a life here. This is the bike section. There's no food in there. He got me right after I ran out. That's okay, I'm gonna get another extend. Still gonna have 4 or 5 lives. Really bad performance from my part today, though. Not playing very well. No, I don't need the meat. Hope I don't mess this up too. Nice. Salvage that. That was a pretty shitty Death Island, though, all things considered. Not playing to the best of my ability right now. It doesn't help that it's fucking 2:30 in the morning and I took my meds. It's not helping either. It's my fault, not the game's fault. Should be able to clear this, though. Just gotta stop making amateur mistakes. Linda is still alive. Be a food here. There we go. Jeez, they're just like not cooperating today. I don't know if it's me or what. No, it's mostly me, but shit. They're not letting me get anything started. This sucks, man. This was a good run at the start, considering how long it's been since I've played. It's all just falling apart. Still got another extend coming, though. Beat this game only dying like once or twice, but not tonight. Poor gameplay. Can't get the infinite. How did those guys spawn? They're not supposed to spawn. What's wrong with this run today? I just can't play. Fucking Linda's gonna make it worse. How are you still alive? Gosh, playing so terrible. I don't know why. I, like, suck at this game now. It's just like the worst gameplay I've had on this in a long time. They're just not cooperating today. Would you parry, please? Can't even parry anymore. Just garbage gameplay. I hate the Lindas as gals. It's fucking annoying. Why am I playing so bad? I'm getting frustrated. I'm gonna be so embarrassed if I wipe this run. I just can't play right now. This level of play is really bad. I have no more extends either. believe I've died like 3 times in this level. I don't know I can beat this without dying. Still some of the hardest screens in the game left, too. No, you don't. Alright, gonna have to play this part slow. Aggro these guys one by one. Drop the knife, please. Or not. Thank you. He's still alive. Very good, he cooperated. Got grab and put. I didn't want that. The thing I don't like about the bosses in this game is they just prevent you from doing anything fun. I love this game to death, but bosses are not my favorite part of it. Bosses like this are just kind of boring. Right, should still have this unless I play even worse than I am already. We'll see. He's got to cooperate too. A couple good combos off already. Nice conversion. That was one of the worst runs I've ever done. Forgive me, I took my meds, it's almost 3 in the morning. I think I need to forgive my poor level of play. Not a bad time though, 36:54. Not terrible. I just started playing really badly in the second half. GG. Yeah, I lost a lot of time there. Didn't have enough lives in reserve to take on the Dobermans. You can rush them, but if you're trying to 1cc, it's better to use that knife strat and get them over there one by one. And Dobermans are really easy if you parry, but when you have 3 of them doing it once, it really jacks up the timing. Alright, well, I wasn't planning on doing that, but that was a nice little end to the stream. I bought the physical copy of this off Limited Run Games a couple weeks ago, so probably be playing this a lot more. It's not going to be here for another couple months, though. I just wanted to complete the trinity of Switch beat-em-ups, the good ones anyway. I've already got Ninja Warriors once again, physical. I got Streets of Rage 4, and then this is... I paid for this physical, but probably not going to be here until the summer or spring. Especially since I had a small part in the development of this game too. Same with Streets of Rage 4. It means a lot to me to have them. Alright, that's gonna do it for tonight, folks. Catch you guys, I don't know, whenever I feel like streaming again. I didn't do a phone stream today because I actually made a video instead. I had a tutorial video for Mantis Gamepad Pro, but ironically it stopped working as soon as I started recording, so it screwed up everything. I'll try to get to that later today if I can. Probably more of the same. Maybe some PSO2 or something. Anyway, I'll catch you guys later. Thanks for hanging out. I know I'm kind of streaming at Europe-friendly times right now. I just couldn't go to sleep right away. I need to get some rest tonight. I've got more shifts coming my way. Don't really have a whole lot else I want off the Steam sale. I do have some cash in my wallet. They're supposed to pay me today too, so I might grab some random shit or something. Catch you guys later.